Your body holds 7 sealed chambers that interrupt the flow of your greater destiny without you noticing. In the next few minutes, you will identify each of these 7 points where unprocessed stories turned into physical blockages, and you will begin to release them all. These cores form a hermetic map from the root to the heart, where each region retains a part of your biography and of the ancestry that never found passage. The stagnation you feel does not come from the mind. It lives in specific regions of the body that lock decisions, relationships, and progress before you even notice. If you leave this video now, you will keep trying to solve with reason what only somatic reorganization can dissolve, missing the opportunity to feel exactly where your greater destiny stopped advancing. What forms these 7 blockages and how they shape your trajectory is about to be revealed. Your body is not a continuous unit. It functions as a temple divided into 7 distinct cores, each retaining a specific story that never found passage. By the end of this video, you will know how to locate each of these 7 blockages. You will understand why they lock decisions and postures, and you will have begun the somatic release that reorganizes your internal axis. In the Egyptian mystery schools, the body was read as a structure of ascending portals, not as a biological system, but as a vibrational map where each region corresponds to a quality of consciousness. When one of these portals closes, life paralyzes at that specific level, not abstractly, but as a perceptible locking in choices, relationships, and advances that simply cannot be sustained. Alchemical texts describe these 7 regions as stages of internal transmutation, beginning at the material base of the root and ascending to spiritual integration in the heart. Each core held a secret about how dense matter transforms into awakened consciousness, and when this process was interrupted, the body retained what they called lead, unprocessed weight that blocked ascension. Polyvagal theory reveals that the nervous system organizes defenses exactly in these anatomical regions. The base contracts in dorsal collapse when survival is threatened. The solar plexus hardens in sympathetic hypervigilance in the face of perceived invasions. The chest closes in ventral deactivation when bonds are broken. Epigenetics shows that these tension patterns can be inherited. Previous generations who lived through famine, war, or rupture transmit to the current body defensive reflexes that manifest as rigidity, weight, or closing in specific points. What the alchemists identified as retained lead, neuroscience recognizes as somatic memory fixed in the fascia and in autonomic tone. These 7 blockages are not symbolic invention, they are real geography in your body, and each of them holds a part of the biography and lineage that was never dissolved. Recognizing where these stories settled is the first step to giving the body back the ability to move forward where previously paralysis dominated. The first blockage occupies the bodily base, the root of your inner temple. It manifests as deep contraction in the pelvic floor, inexplicable heaviness in the legs, or the persistent sensation of not truly being able to be present where you are. When primordial safety was broken too early, or inherited as absence from generations who never had firm ground, the body installs dorsal collapse, shutting down the root to protect from what seemed inescapable. The somatic markers reveal this blockage: breathing that never drops below the chest, pelvic rigidity that you feel when you try to fully relax, legs that seem unable to sustain your full presence in the world. It is not muscular weakness. It is an autonomic reflex, fixed decades ago, or transmitted through the lineage, that still determines whether the world is safe or not for you to exist. While the root remains contracted, everything above it compensates, generating cascading tensions that climb through the entire body. The second blockage hardens in the solar plexus, just above the navel, in defense against real or perceived invasions. This core responds to experiences where your inner territory was violated, by authority figures who did not respect boundaries, by hostile environments that demanded constant vigilance, or by family dynamics that never allowed autonomy. The solar plexus learns to arm itself as a shield, but that hardening prevents you from feeling your own power without activating defensive tension. The marker is persistent weight pressing the region, tension that does not relax even in safe contexts, breathing that jams at the diaphragm and never completes the cycle. Decisions become reactive because the solar plexus operates in survival mode, not in creation. Creativity collapses, self-responsibility turns into hyper-control, and the body lives prepared for threats that no longer exist, but the nervous system doesn't know that. So the defense remains active, consuming vital energy that should be available to build. The third blockage closes the chest when bonds were broken or were inherited as loss. Not only the ruptures you lived directly, but also the separations that crossed your lineage. Mothers who lost children, abandoned fathers, entire generations who migrated, leaving everything behind. This closing is not emotional in the abstract sense. It is structural, recorded in the fascia surrounding the heart, altering how you breathe, how your shoulders position themselves, how your chest retracts in the face of the possibility of intimacy. The markers appear as perpetually short breathing, shoulders that round forward to protect, a physical sensation of not being able to open even when you want to. Deep relationships generate bodily discomfort before they generate mental clarity, because the chest learned that to open is to risk collapse. You may desire connection, but the body vetoes the opening necessary to sustain it, and thus bonds that could deepen remain on the surface, not by conscious choice, but because the third blockage keeps the door shut. The fourth blockage locks the throat when expression led to punishment. Speaking the truth caused rupture, showing yourself authentic generated rejection. Using your voice brought consequences that the body recorded as a threat to social survival. The throat closes not out of shyness, but out of somatic wisdom. It learned that staying silent was the only safe strategy. Decades later, even in contexts where speaking is safe, cervical tension persists. The voice does not come out at full strength. Words jam before they are born. The marker is evident, a sensation of tightness in the throat when you need to take a stand, a voice that fails at important moments, cervical tension that hardens when you need to express yourself. Opportunities are lost not due to lack of competence, but because communication collapses under pressure. You know what you want to say, but between thought and word there is a physical blockage that interrupts the passage, and the more you force it, the more the throat contracts, confirming to the body that expression is still not safe. The fifth blockage accumulates weight on the shoulders, literally. It is the burden that was never shared, the responsibility you've carried alone for so long that your shoulders molded to the shape of the load. This blockage arises when you became the pillar that sustains everyone around you, when there was no space for fragility, when asking for help was impossible. The shoulders lift, tense, harden, and the weight becomes part of the posture, altering how you move through the world. The sixth blockage fixes emotional vigilance in the cervical region, turning the neck into a permanent watchtower. The head juts forward, the cervical spine hardens, the gaze remains in constant alert even when there is no present danger. This pattern is born from years of sustaining defenses that never rested. Childhoods where it was necessary to anticipate unstable moods, environments where relaxing meant dangerous vulnerability. The cervical region keeps the nervous system on standby, and the body never truly switches off, even during sleep. The seventh blockage collapses the axis at the point between the shoulder blades, where posture gives way when presence is lost. It is the place where micro-collapses happen, moments when you feel the whole body yield, strength disappear, the capacity to remain present suddenly drain away. It is not muscular fatigue. It is the axis that can no longer sustain the weight of life because it was never reorganized after traumas that fragmented the internal structure. Each of these collapses reinforces the memory that you cannot sustain what you were trying to build. These 7 blockages do not operate in isolation. They form a system. When the root does not anchor, the solar plexus compensates with hypervigilance to create an artificial sense of control. When the solar plexus hardens too much, the chest closes to protect the heart from further invasions. When the chest closes, the throat locks because expressing vulnerability without opening in the chest would be exposing yourself without protection. The cascade of compensations shapes posture, alters decisions, limits relationships, and locks your greater destiny before you realize what happened. To locate your blockages, do a descending body scan now. Start with the throat. Is there tension when swallowing? Tightness when thinking about speaking truth? Go down to the chest. Is your breathing short? Do your shoulders round forward? Is there a sensation of inner closing? Continue to the solar plexus. Do you feel weight above the navel? Tension that does not relax? A diaphragm that will not release? Reach the base. Does your breathing descend to the pelvic floor or jam before it? Do your legs sustain presence or seem disconnected? Each point. Where you feel rigidity, weight, or closing is a blockage that needs attention. The initial release does not require force, it requires presence. Choose one of the blockages you identified and breathe toward it, without forcing an opening, simply creating inner space. Place your hand on the region. If it is the chest, hand on the sternum. If it is the solar plexus, hand above the navel. If it is the base, hand on the lower abdomen. This conscious touch communicates to the nervous system that core can begin to let go of what it was retaining. Remain breathing into this point for 60 seconds, allowing micro-postural adjustments to happen naturally. When the root begins to anchor, you feel it, breathing that finally descends. Legs that sustain presence differently, a sensation of ground where before there was suspension. The solar plexus can then relax its excessive vigilance because the base has returned to provide support. When the solar plexus releases, the chest finds space to begin to open, not all at once, but in small expansions that accumulate. And when the chest opens, the throat discovers passage, allowing the voice to come out without jamming, the truth to be expressed without internal collapse. This reorganizing is not abstract. You feel it in the posture that aligns on its own, in the breathing that completes cycles it used to interrupt, in sensations of inner space arising where there was only compression. Relationships that previously generated automatic closing begin to allow opening. Decisions that collapsed under pressure gain support. Projects you started but could not sustain find an axis to develop. Life stops locking in the same places because the 7 points where your stories fragmented are releasing what was retained, returning to your greater destiny, the strength the body held but could not access. Blair had worked as a manicurist for 15 years, but in the last 3, something had changed. She woke up exhausted, even after sleeping 8 hours, as if her body never truly rested. At 41, she felt her chest locked from the inside, an ancient pressure she could not name but that was always present. More intimate relationships scared her, not by conscious decision, but because her body closed automatically before vulnerability arrived, as if an inner door slammed without warning. She attributed everything to the fatigue of the profession, the intense routine, the accumulated stress, until the day a client mentioned a workshop on somatic, memory and inherited patterns that had completely transformed the way she inhabited her own body. Blair went out of curiosity, without great expectations. It was there that she heard, for the first time, about the 7 blockages that form the ascending map from root to heart, and something inside her immediately recognized that this was not theory. It was exactly what her body had been trying to communicate for years. During the body scan exercise, Blair felt with visceral clarity a contracted base that never fully relaxed, a solar plexus armed in constant tension, a chest that seemed wrapped in hardened fascia. She began the practice taught in the workshop, breathing toward each identified point, without forcing an opening, simply creating inner space and applying conscious touch over the blocked regions. In the first 3 days, the changes were subtle, breathing descending half a centimeter more, shoulders releasing slightly at the end of the afternoon. 2 weeks later, something different happened. During an appointment, a client made an aggressive comment about her work, and Blair noticed that her solar plexus did not harden in automatic defensiveness. She was able to listen, process, and respond firmly without activating the tension that had always dominated her in these situations. 3 weeks, in a difficult conversation with her sister about unresolved family matters, her chest remained open where previously it would have closed instantly, allowing her to sustain presence even in the discomfort of the vulnerability the conversation required. 6 weeks after the workshop, Blair noticed a deeper change. Her voice, when speaking with clients, had a different quality, firm and clear, without the cervical tension that had always jammed her words when she needed to take a stand. It was not instant, magical transformation. It was progressive and perceptible reorganization. The 7 blockages that shaped her reactions limited her expression, and closed her relationships began to release what they had been retaining, and her life stopped collapsing at the same points where it had always collapsed. The physical marker that proves this integration is the breathing descending to the base without conscious effort, the chest expanding without encountering inner resistance, the throat not contracting when expressing truth. The signal gesture that anchors this new state. Place your hand on the sternum. Exhale slowly through the nose, Feel where your body still retains tension and where it has begun to release. Repeat this for 40 seconds a day over the next 7 days, always at the same time, creating a ritual that the nervous system recognizes as a moment of reorganization. When you notice that you have returned to the old pattern, chest closing, solar plexus arming, base contracting, activate your return point. Pause what you are doing. Scan the 7 cores again from top to bottom. Identify which blockage contracted. Breathe toward it with conscious touch over the region. Internal phrase that reactivates presence. Each blockage I release returns a path to my greater destiny. This seal transforms intellectual recognition into a trackable somatic habit, preventing the body from automatically returning to the patterns that shaped decades of limitation. You have just learned that your body is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a map to be read. Each of the 7 blockages that locked your destiny can be located, decoded, and released. The stagnation you felt was not a lack of mental strength or clarity of purpose. It was the presence of sealed cores that held unprocessed stories, inherited memories, defenses installed so long ago that you forgot they were there. By recognizing these points and initiating somatic release, the internal axis reorganizes, returning support to choices, relationships, and advances that previously collapsed before they even began. Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." But he was not speaking of abstract emotional wounds, the kind discussed in therapy without ever touching the body. Rumi spoke of the bodily fissure, the exact point where the defense installed itself, where the fascia hardened, where the breath stopped descending. And when that fissure is finally recognized, touched with conscious presence, it ceases to be a blockage and becomes a portal of transmutation, the place where what was retained finally finds passage to dissolve. In the oldest contemplative traditions, God did not inhabit external temples made of stone and gold. He inhabited the bodily temple you carry from birth. And when that temple is divided by blockages that fragment presence, the connection with the sacred also fragments. You pray, meditate, seek, but something does not resonate because the inner chambers are sealed. Releasing the 7 cores is not only personal healing, it is the restoration of the channel that links the human to the divine. Returning to your life the quality of a conscious ritual, where each breath, each movement, each choice carries a sacred weight. You spent years trying to change with reason what only the body could reorganize. Each blockage you recognize today is a door that was closed, and now you have the key. The greater destiny you felt locked did not disappear, was not lost, was not an illusion. It was waiting, with infinite patience, for you to return to the body and open, one by one, the chambers where your story fragmented. And each chamber you release returns the strength that was retained, the presence that was suspended, the path that seemed impossible but was always available. When the body ceases to be a battlefield and returns to being a temple, life stops locking in the same places, and what was kept for decades finally finds passage. If this content resonated with you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications so you don't miss any revelation we publish here. If you wish to directly support Inner Temple's mission and help bring this wisdom to more people who need to awaken the hidden blockages that lock their destiny, consider becoming a channel member. Your contribution keeps alive the flame of this portal of ancestral and scientific knowledge that returns presence to the body. I want you to seal this transformation now by declaring in the comments, "I release the 7 hidden blockages that were locking my greater destiny." This affirmation anchors your presence on the path of somatic consciousness. Share this video with someone you know carries invisible lockups kept in cores that were never recognized. And don't stop here. Click on the screen and dive into another transformative video on the channel. Each core you release expands the territory of your existence. Remember, when you recognize where your story fragmented and allow the body to release what was retained for years, the greater destiny that seemed impossible once again has an open path.